SSS Defence is a subsidiary of a firm called Stump, Shule and Sonapa Springs. It's a firm that's been in business for 70 years. It is the largest manufacturer of springs in India. It is a 100% Indian-owned company, a very closely held family-owned company. SSS Defence was conceived 3 years back. It was a firm that was promoted again by Stump, Shule and Sonapa Springs. Professional management, very institutionalized working culture, substantial value add coming in through the parent in terms of its very solid understanding of metallurgy and design of specific components. Also important to note that Stump, Shule, Sonapa Springs was a supplier to the Indian Ordnance factories for a fairly long time. But SSS Defence started from almost zero. It was almost like a skunk works project. And so when we started off, it was just a bunch of guys with varied expertise in technology, in business, and what we tried to do from the beginning was essentially focus around some of our core strengths, and the core strengths were obviously around design, understanding of manufacturing process, and a way in which we could adopt technologies. The choice of small arms, so to speak, was again driven by the fact that we had a core competence in the area of metallurgy. What we brought in addition to all of this, was very good understanding of user experience and design. So we created a team to do that particular job. We also got into the ammunition sector. This was through a joint venture with a firm called Companhia Brasileira de Cartuchos, or CBC, which is a Brazilian firm and the second largest manufacturer of ammunition globally. By being in both of these areas, what we're trying to do is we're trying to kind of ensure that we have the car and we also have control over the fuel, because what happens in the small arms space is that you have a great weapon, but the great weapon can actually be a dud simply because of the fact that the ammunition isn't up to the mark. And so what we today are in is pretty much the entire spectrum of weapon systems for individual and crew served operators, which includes the weapon, the sight, the military optics, that is, the ammunition and tactical gear. Now the marquee product is what you see in here. This is the sniper rifle. We have it chambered for two different cartridges. One is the 7.62 by 51 NATO standard ammunition, and the other one is what is called the .338 Lapua Magnum, or 8.6 into 70 cartridge. Now the rifle in itself is made in such a way that it is compact, it is modular in construction, has the ability to mount all optical accessories which are critical for the theaters in which our soldiers serve. Comes in with the suppressor, has a barrel which is a bull barrel, and a high-end military bolt, that is. It is a 3-pronged bolt, which is standard de facto in most international militaries. And this is the one that we are putting up for trials. We are also focusing on the export market, and the reason why we have the ability to focus on the export market is because of the fact that all of these technologies were built by us in-house. These were designed by us as well. So we end up being the original designer. We also end up being the original manufacturer of the equipment. We are not constrained by any technology transfer pacts which might compromise us from the ability to tap into international markets. We may not only be in international markets with the whole weapon, but we could also be in international markets with spares for these weapons and components of these weapons. I should also be very clear here. There are bottlenecks which are very, very specific to the business that we're working in, and there are bottlenecks which are generic in nature. Now, Make in India, as much as it is something which is a need of the hour. So there was no way you could have avoided Make in India at some point or the other, especially for defense. But in the area of small arms, the problems are more compounded by the fact that the one way in which you can test your weapons going forward is by having substantial rounds of ammunition available to you. Now, some of the largest marketplaces for small arms are all marketplaces where ammunition companies are in plenty, where the importation of ammunition is available, where people can buy ammunition for testing. What happens in India is that the entire production of ammunition is controlled by a single government player. There is bureaucracy which is involved when it comes to being able to access cartridges for testing, There are issues with regard to the quality of the cartridges which you have. But needless to say, you still have to develop a weapon which will use some of those cartridges going forward, because it is more likely that a soldier will use an ordnance factory board ammunition, right? What we're definitely trying to do is we're trying to introduce our Indian-made ammunition also into the market by 2021. Hopefully that will kind of improve the status quo as far as ammunition is concerned. But until then, I have to basically live with what was given to me. And that creates a problem, because whilst the rest of the world does not have to bother about ammunition, we have to bother a lot about ammunition. We've got to ration out ammunition for testing. So we've done a lot of simulation when it comes to some of these weapons. We've used foreign testers. We've used foreign certifications in many cases, because of the fact that Indian companies or Indian government agencies do not know how to certify a foreign firearm. But all of this is a prerequisite, because if I need to tap into the foreign export markets, I cannot do with some of these. I just can't do without some of these certifications, right? So we've done what is needed. We've invested money, we've invested capital. We've had to do all of this with the idea that export markets will be a major play for us besides the Indian market.